So I'm your post-break entertainment. You already had your snack, you already had your coffee, you're supposed to be wide awake, phones down, heads up, right? It's not the way it's supposed to be. So I'm here to talk about a couple of things. And if you look at the name of my talk today, it talks about the fact that it's plain broken. Let me tell you how I came to this conclusion that this whole sector needs a lot of work. So I'm appreciating what I heard already this morning, certainly talking about outcomes, but I'll give you a couple of guilty admissions. The first one is I came from for-profit. Right? I work in nonprofit now, so I recovered, but I was in for-profit for about 20 years before I came to work in not-for-profit. In for-profit, there's this really cool thing like a value proposition, right? You create something that people are willing to pay for, and hopefully they're willing to pay you more than it costs you, and you walk away with money, and everything's great. And if you do a terrible job, nobody buys your stuff, your business goes away, and everything moves on. In not-for-profit, it doesn't quite work that way. Matter of fact, it's kind of fuzzy. So when I came from for-profit to here, I thought, huzzah, I've arrived, right? I know how to do all this stuff, mergers, acquisitions, business development, business turnaround, startups, all these interesting things, and I'm going to do that here. Except the beautiful thing will be that everybody will want to work together and collaborate. We won't be competing with each other in a win-lose scenario. I hear you all laughing. You're a nonprofit, you know, right? That's the thing. I thought, well, we all want the greater good, because that's why you come to this sector. You come here because you want something bigger than yourself. So that'll be great. We can forget this competition, this artificial junk that we instill in the for-profit sector, and we'll just look to the greater good. I was wrong. I was really disheartened, I have to tell you that. Really, really disheartened to find out that the silos and pillars and things in this sector in some ways are bigger than they are in for-profit. And there is no mechanism to collaborate and communicate. As a matter of fact, if you do, you might lose revenue for your own organization, which is kind of ridiculous and backwards, but it turns out that we're so hung up on survival of the institution that we make decisions that are very short-sighted, just like government does, because they're busy trying to get reelected, or whatever the case may be. Nonprofits are doing the same thing. And so are for-profits, because they're worried about quarterly profitability. They're not worried about the long-term gains, but we're supposed to be, aren't we? This is where it matters. This is where we get to say, but wait, you can't just have profit at the expense of all of community. We can't trash the entire environment and not care about anybody or anything for the sake of this glorified profitability. So there's got to be a better way to do this. So I had this hat on when I came into this sector now 10 years ago. With this big opportunistic idea that we were just going to fix it. I was going to do that in 3 years in my organization as a CFO, because I figured, well, I'll just fix the financial underpinnings, because that's messed up. How many of you work in not-for-profits? It's messed up, is it not? How many of you know when your payroll is? You do. You absolutely do. You probably don't even know how much it is every 2 weeks, because you have to care about those things. Wouldn't it be nice if we could care about outcomes? Sounds so glamorous, right? We're gonna do good things, but really what you have to do is pay the payroll, and you have to make sure the office lights are on and the rent's paid and all this stuff. So I came in pretty disheartened, trying to figure out, okay, so we do all these things, and I asked our board, I said, okay, so our mission is to serve and care for those in need. Anybody else have a mission statement like that you could drive a truck through? I'm like, right? I'm like, what does that mean exactly? I don't know what that means. I don't know how to know if I've done it. Like, are people better off? Or maybe not. Early on, I told our board, it's a miracle that not only am I the CEO now, which is really, I don't know how that happened. I wasn't planning on that. I just was going to fix it. But somehow or other, I couldn't stay in my corner. Now I'm here because I can't stay in our company either, right? Because I care about this bigger picture. There's something fundamentally wrong with the way we think about what is happening here. So we were doing all these things. We do everything from foster care and adoption and elder care and housing, and we're resettlement for refugees and disabilities, and we do all these things all over New England, this big giant organization. How amazing, right? But it struck me after a while that, but wait, I feel like we're driving around a bus, okay? We have picture an empty bus. We're driving it around, and we're looking for people who look really pathetic. Right? And if you look bad enough, will stop and open the door. Come on. Sorry, Ron, come on. You're on my bus, it's warm here. I've got some food. Let me see what I can do to help you out for a bit, right? And I'm gonna drive you around as long as my friends' government are willing to keep funding me to drive you around. But then when they stop, it doesn't really matter if you're better off, does it? It just matters I don't have any more money. So I'm just gonna open the door and I'm gonna wish you well, because I got more people I need to go get. And I'm like, this is what success is? This is what? So it really bothers me. So we started rethinking this, and I want to pitch you a framework that I've started to think about how this sector's set up and what has to fundamentally change. Now, I could sit here for 2 hours, and I could do just like this, because I am wound up about this subject. But I only have 10 minutes, so I'm going to give you a little bit of a picture of a different way to think about this. Picture down here is what I'm going to call the dependent cycle. This is what happens after failure. After you're sick, after you have a diagnosis, after you're homeless, after you're something, after you are ill, after you have an opioid addiction, after you end up in jail, after you show up in the hospital because you have an emergent need, this is where you end up. By the way, this is where most of the people in this room hang out. We hang out in this dependent space that's funded by government and charity, almost exclusively. If you're broken enough, we will kind of show up. We'll drive you around a while anyway. I'm not sure if we're making things better off, but we're trying, so it's admirable. But it turns out, I can use props. It turns out there's this lovely space here and there's this big old wall right about here. That if you want to get out of this space, it turns out it's pretty hard, right? There's a lot of barriers to getting out of this place called dependence. Let's say you're coming out of jail. Let's say you're coming out of foster care. Let's say you're coming as an immigrant into this country as a refugee. How hard is it to get out of this space? And if you do get lucky enough to dip your toe over the line and you make $10 too much, what happens? Go back to go, right? Do not pass do not collect your $200, you're going back to jail. That's just how it is. And so some of us want to think, I call this the shame and blame territory, because this must have been somebody's fault that you're here, right? Because if you're here, we're going to somehow, you should be grateful that we're helping you, by the way, because aren't we nice? We charitable organizations, we're helping all these needy people, aren't we wonderful? Or maybe we're part of the problem. If you stroll on down to the other end of this little continuum, think of this as a continuum. This is where you all are for the most part, but there's a few in this room that are not. This is independence. This is if you're lucky, and it's temporary. If you're lucky, you get to stay in this space where if something happens to you, provided it's not too catastrophic, you'll be just fine. For example, if I get up this morning and my car doesn't work, what do I have for choices? Right? If I live near public transportation, that'd be good. I live in New Hampshire, so that might be a little bit of a chore. But enterprise, right? Won't they pick me up? I think there's something like that, right? They'll come get me. Actually, probably the reality of it is I'm going to elbow my husband, tell him I'm taking the truck, and oh, by the way, the car doesn't work. Right? Or I just bought my youngest daughter a car yesterday that isn't quite hers yet because she hasn't paid for it, so that's mine too. Bye. Right? I mean, I have options. If you have capital, there are options, lots of them. You don't have time to mow your lawn, pay the neighbor kid. Right? Capital works really well. The capital system works really well if you have it. But it turns out most people are somewhere between here and here. And even if you're here, and you're fortunate enough to be here for a while, you're going to run out of health or money or both. And you're going to take a stroll on back down to needing help. So no matter who you are, where you are, you started here as a kid. If you're lucky, you graduated from high school, graduated from college, you got a little education, your parents co-signed a loan, you did, got a family, you got a house, and everything's all swell, and you end up over here for a while until, don't try divorce, by the way. It's like a fast track all the way back to here, right? Anybody had to, you all know, if you've been divorced, you know this. Or you could have an illness. You could have an accident. You could get laid off. There's 50 reasons why you could get bounced around on here. But most people are 1 paycheck, 2 paychecks, 3 away from something happening to them. But here's what's interesting to me. We put all of our money here. And we don't go anywhere close to here, because as soon as you're even slightly maybe okay, we stop funding. So I have a good example. We have a teen parent program. Fabulous. You end up coming into our teen parent program, you're 15, 16 years old, you're going to get an education, because we're going to make sure you do. You're going to get your GED, because that's really fabulous, right? That's going to get you a great job. You're going to learn how to take care of your child, because you have no family support. And at 20 and a half, no insult to my government partners, the geniuses at DCF say, go forth and be with you. Where are they going? Right? Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. How many of you have kids over 20? How many of them are good to go with no help from you at 20 and a half? No insurance, no cosign loans, no anything, no nothing. Yeah, none of them. Because the reality of it is, in order to make this walk, even if you come from a healthy family, this walk turns out to be a little tricky. And yet, there is no funding from here all the way up to here. And so our organizations are all built on this idea that we wait till you fail. So does the healthcare system. The healthcare system is exactly the same way. We do not pay for healthcare, we pay for sick care. And when we pay for it, we hand you out pharma like it's candy. I just want you to feel better. You're not actually better, but you might feel better for a few minutes, provided you didn't get too many conflicting prescriptions and then you feel worse. Sorry about that. But here's the thing. We don't do anything until you're already sick. My pitch to you all today is that we start rethinking how this works. When you're talking about outcomes, what kind of outcomes are we talking about? My best example, I was in Omaha a couple of weeks ago, and I was talking to the head of a large child welfare agency. It was a big CEO group. And he made the pitch to the group that his biggest vision was that every kid coming out of foster care would have supports. I sat back in my chair and I'm like, that's a terrible vision. Shouldn't we be keeping families intact and not having kids in foster care in the first place? Isn't that the kind of vision we ought to have? Isn't the vision to keep people from getting sick and, God willing, moving the line back? We can, you know. But we're going to have to move into this space. Funders are going to have to move with us into a new space. We in the nonprofit sector need to get it together and start looking at what it means to be successful. Not survive like the people that we are trying to help. We're all just barely surviving. But redefine what it means to do the work we're trying to do. That means moving up into this space. That means potentially selling to for-profit. Right? We're creating value. Huge amounts of value. Somebody referred to it earlier when they said that our healthcare system is already paying the price, $3.2 trillion, if I have my number right, in wasted healthcare dollars. So my argument is we're already spending it. We're already spending it. We have lousy outcomes. We're going to have to move into this space more significantly to prevent the kind of problems that are happening from happening and creating a bigger bridge to get you out of this space into this space, like the housing folks were talking about. But not just that. Not just help people post-failure, but let's start talking about what it's going to take to prevent the failure in the first place. And with that, I'm out of time. So, thank you.